Rain hammers the pavement like a judgment. A woman in a torn yellow tarp clutches her infant, palm outstretched to passing strangers. A black sedan stops. The man inside steps out barefoot, his Ferragamo shoes left behind, and kneels in the gutter. Eye level with her. His hands are shaking. "Sister," he whispers. "You saved my daughter's life." She stares at him. She doesn't recognize his face, but he recognizes hers, the face the world called a thief, the nurse Ghana tried to erase. Have you ever been destroyed by a lie so powerful that strangers spit near your feet? Have you watched your name burn while the guilty wore crowns? This is one of those African stories where real-life stories become touching stories, because when life stories break us, redemption is watching, waiting, remembering. What he did next didn't just shock her. It brought a corrupt system to its knees. 18 months earlier, Amara Ndlovu wore her blue hospital badge the way soldiers wear medals. 11 years of night shifts, double doses of patience and hands that could find a vein in the dark. Head nurse, Ward 4. The pediatric wing at Accra General Hospital knew her voice before her face. Calm, steady, the sound mothers trusted when their babies stopped breathing. That Tuesday morning, 2 hospital police officers walked past the nurse's station without looking at her. They stopped at her locker. Amara Ndlovu. The older one held a manila folder. "You need to come with us." The ward went silent. Mothers holding sick infants turned to watch. Junior nurses froze mid-chart. Amara's hands were gloved, mid-injection for a 3-year-old with pneumonia. She finished the dose, peeled off the gloves, and followed the officers into the marble lobby. 200 people stood between her and the exit. The air smelled like antiseptic and fear. Grace Ndlovu, her sister-in-law, the hospital administrator, stood at the center, microphone in hand, tears streaming down her face. She wore a yellow blazer that caught every overhead light like a spotlight. The fabric was expensive, Italian cut. The kind administrators don't buy on hospital salaries. Grace's voice cracked as she addressed the crowd. 85,000 Cedis, stolen from the Children's Emergency Fund. She held up a printout. Security footage shows Amara accessing the locked pharmacy cabinet at 2:13 a.m. last Thursday. The same night, the money disappeared. A mother near the entrance gasped. Another covered her child's ears. The crowd pressed closer, a slow tide of judgment. Amara's throat closed. "Grace, what are you talking about?" Grace turned to her, eyes red, hands trembling, but her voice was steady, rehearsed. "I vouched for you. I brought you into leadership. And you—" Her voice broke on cue. "You stole from dying children?" The crowd shifted. Whispers became murmurs. Murmurs became accusations. An elderly man pointed. "Thief, you should be ashamed." A nurse Amara had trained spat on the floor near her feet. The saliva glistened on marble. The security chief stepped forward, his voice flat and procedural. "Amara Ndlovu, hospital policy requires immediate suspension pending investigation. Surrender your identification." Amara's hands moved to her neck. The blue badge hung on a lanyard. Head nurse, Ward 4, embossed in white letters. She'd worn it every day for 4 years. She'd taken it off only to shower. The security chief didn't wait. He reached forward and yanked the lanyard. The clasp broke. The badge clattered onto the marble floor, the sound sharp as a gunshot in the silent lobby. Grace picked it up. She held it for a moment, staring at Amara's photo on the plastic. Then she placed it in a clear evidence bag and sealed it with the careful slowness of someone who wanted cameras to catch every frame. "I'm sorry," Grace whispered, loud enough for the front row to hear. "I wanted to protect you. But the law is the law." Amara was escorted out. The crowd parted. No one met her eyes. She could feel their stares burning into her spine like cigarette burns. Outside, the Accra sun hit her face. She realized she was still wearing her gloves. The unraveling was methodical. David tried to defend her. He went to the hospital board, hired a lawyer they couldn't afford, stayed awake writing appeals until his eyes bled red. 3 weeks after the accusation, he fell asleep at the wheel on Spintex Road during evening rush hour. The collision report said his cortisol levels were triple normal range. Stress hormones don't lie. Amara was 6 months pregnant. She stood at his funeral while her former colleagues avoided her gaze. Grace attended, dressed in black, and hugged Amara at the graveside. "I'm praying for you," Grace whispered into her ear. That night, Grace went on her radio show, Faith and Healing Hour, and told 50,000 listeners about the tragedy of a woman who destroyed her own family through greed. Amara's lawyer explained the timeline over the phone. Ghana's Labour Act, Section 62D, meant wrongful termination cases took 18 to 24 months to adjudicate. Court filing fees alone were 3,000 Cedis. Her bank accounts were frozen by court order. Baby Zara was born 2 months later in a public clinic with no painkillers and no husband's hand to hold. The nurse who delivered her wouldn't look at Amara's face. Present day. Liberation Road and 28th February Street. The highway overpass offered 3 feet of dry concrete when it wasn't raining. Amara slept there with Zara wrapped in donated blankets that smelled like diesel and stranger's pity. The intersection was good for begging. Enough traffic, enough guilt, enough people pretending not to see her. She held out her palm from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. The concrete burned in the heat and froze at night. Zara's weight against her chest was the only warmth that didn't fade. On good days, she earned 20 Cedis. On bad days, 12. Enough for rice and clean water. Not enough for diapers. Not enough for dignity. A woman in a tailored suit walked past, then stopped. She turned back, squinting. "Wait, aren't you that nurse? The one who stole from the children's ward?" Amara said nothing. She'd learned silence was safer than truth. The woman's lip curled. "You have a baby and you're still out here begging?" Shameless. She walked away, heels clicking on pavement like accusations. A taxi driver leaned out his window. "If you need money so bad, sister, there are other ways to earn it." His laugh followed her into the evening. Zara cried. Amara breastfed her behind a dumpster, while city cleaners hosed down the street. Tuesdays they sprayed disinfectant, chlorine and ammonia mixing into a chemical fog that burned her throat and soaked Zara's blanket. She learned to time the feedings around the cleaner's schedule. Grace's face appeared on billboards now. Regional Health Director. Her radio show expanded to television. Every Sunday morning, she sat in a pristine studio wearing her signature yellow dress, holding a Bible, talking about integrity and leadership. "When I had to make the painful decision to expose corruption at Accra General," she told a live audience, "I lost a sister, but integrity demands sacrifice. We cannot let family ties blind us to wrongdoing." The camera loved her. The audience applauded. Donations poured in. Amara watched the broadcast on an electronics store's display window. She stood in the rain, Zara strapped to her chest, watching the woman who destroyed her accept a humanitarian award. A church group found her one evening. They offered shelter, a bed, meals, safety, but only if she confessed publicly and repented during Sunday service. "God forgives the repentant," the pastor said, his voice kind but firm. "But you must admit your sin first." Amara looked at him. Zara was asleep against her chest. Tiny fingers curled around the blue scarf Amara wore tied at her waist, the same shade as her lost badge. "I won't lie to God to satisfy you." They left her in the rain. She never cursed Grace, not once. Not when the hunger cramped her stomach. Not when strangers spat at her feet. Not when Zara cried through the night because Amara's milk was thin from malnutrition. "Bitterness will kill me faster than hunger," she told Zara during the quiet hours, "and I have to stay alive for you." But some nights, after Zara finally slept, Amara pressed her palm against the concrete overpass and felt the vibrations of cars passing overhead. People going somewhere. People with names that still meant something. She closed her eyes and counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3. As long as she could count, she was still Amara and Lovu. As long as Zara was breathing, the world hadn't taken everything. Not yet. 9 months into the streets, Amara learned the economy of survival. Tuesdays were good. Payday for construction workers who threw coins without looking. Sundays were terrible. Church crowds gave sermons instead of Cedis. Fridays brought drunk men with grabbing hands and promises she'd never accept. She learned which alleys had the cleanest dumpsters, which vendors threw away bread at closing time instead of donating it, which police officers would let her sleep under the overpass, and which ones would wake her with a kick and tell her to move along. Zara grew heavier every week. 4 months old, then 5, then 6. Her eyes started tracking movement. Sometimes she smiled. Those moments kept Amara's heart beating when her body wanted to quit. The blue scarf stayed tied around Amara's waist. Faded now, stained with rainwater and dust, but she refused to throw it away. A street vendor asked her once, "Why you keep that dirty rag?" Amara touched it without thinking. "It reminds me of who I was." And who was that? Someone who saved lives. The vendor gave her 3 oranges that day without charging her. The soup kitchen on Kwame Nkrumah Avenue opened Wednesdays and Saturdays. Amara went when Zara cried too much from hunger and her own milk ran thin. The line stretched around the block. 200 people waiting for rice and groundnut stew, served by volunteers who smiled with pity in their eyes. An elderly man stood behind Amara in line. He wore a faded blue shirt and glasses held together with tape. He stared at her for a long time. "Sister Amara." She turned. Her throat tightened. She didn't recognize him at first. Exhaustion had erased so many faces. He smiled gently. "Dr. Mensah, Kofi Mensah, cardiology. I retired 2 years ago." The memory surfaced slowly. Dr. Mensah, late 60s, kind eyes. He used to bring pastries to the nurses' station during night shifts, always remembering who liked what. She looked at the ground. "Dr. Mensah, I never believed it," he said. His voice was firm, low enough that others wouldn't hear. "Your hands saved too many children. I watched you work for 11 years. Thieves don't stay awake for double shifts. Thieves don't cry when patients die." Amara's eyes burned. She hadn't cried in months. Tears were a luxury she couldn't afford. Salt and water wasted when both were scarce. Dr. Mensah pulled a pen from his pocket and wrote his phone number on a napkin. "If you ever need a witness, call me. I'll tell them the truth." He pressed the napkin into her hand and walked away before she could thank him. That night, Amara sat under the overpass and stared at the number. She didn't have a phone, but she kept the napkin tucked inside Zara's blanket. It was the first time in months someone had called her by her name instead of beggar or thief. But the next morning, a police officer kicked her awake at dawn and told her the city was cleaning up the area. She had 30 minutes to leave. She gathered Zara and her few belongings and walked until her feet bled, searching for another overpass, another 3 feet of concrete that no one else had claimed. Hope, she learned, was a flame that sparked and died 100 times before it finally caught, 3 years earlier. Accra General Hospital. Night shift. The memory came to Amara in fragments during the quiet hours. She tried not to think about the hospital. Remembering hurt worse than hunger. But some nights the past forced itself forward. It was a Tuesday.
She'd worked 16 hours straight, covering for a sick colleague.
Her feet ached. Her eyes felt like sandpaper. 1 more hour until shift change. Then the girl came in, 7 years old. Alma Osi. Severe allergic reaction. Her throat closing, lips turning blue, parents screaming. The on-call doctor was supposed to be in the building. He wasn't answering his pager. Amara found him in the staff lounge, drunk, passed out on the couch with an empty bottle. Beside him, she ran back to the ER. The girl had maybe 3 minutes administering. Epinephrine without a doctor's order could cost Amara her license. Hospital policy was clear. Nurses don't make those calls, but policies don't breathe. Children do. Amara administered the shot. The girl's throat opened. Her lungs filled. Her father collapsed against the wall, sobbing. He was younger then, thinner, beard not yet grey. He knelt in front of Amara and grabbed her hands. "You didn't have to risk your career," he whispered. "I owe you everything." His name was Kwame Ose. He owned a small tech company. He wasn't famous yet, wasn't rich yet, but his daughter was alive because a nurse chose mercy over rules. Amara squeezed his hands. "You don't owe me anything. This is what we do." She never saw him again. The hospital buried the incident. The drunk doctor was quietly transferred. Amara's unauthorized injection disappeared from official records, but Kwame Ose remembered present day. The rain came without warning. Accra's storms don't ask permission. The sky opened and the streets flooded within minutes. Amara pulled Zara close and ducked under her torn yellow tarp. The water pooled at her feet. Cars splashed past without slowing. Then a black sedan stopped, not beside her, not in front of her. Directly in the lane, blocking traffic. Horns blared. Drivers shouted. The back door opened. A man stepped out. He wore an expensive suit, charcoal grey, Italian cut, the kind of fabric that cost more than Amara used to make in 3 months. His shoes were polished leather. Ferragamo, she noticed, because Grace used to brag about owning a pair. He bent down, removed his shoes. left them on the pavement. He walked barefoot through the gutter water toward her. Traffic stopped. People stared. He knelt in front of her, eye level. His knees in the filthy water. His hands were shaking. "Sister," he said. His voice cracked. "You saved my daughter's life." Amara stared at him. She didn't recognize his face. 3 years of malnutrition had hollowed her memory. 3 years of survival had erased everything but hunger and exhaustion. He pulled out his phone. Showed her a photo. A young girl, 10 years old, healthy, smiling, standing beside a birthday cake. "Amma," he whispered, "she's alive because of you." The memory crashed back. The ER, the blue lips, the epinephrine. The father's hands gripping hers. "Mr. Ose," Amara breathed. "Kwame," he corrected. "Please." Just Kwame. He looked different, heavier, successful, confident. The newspapers called him a billionaire now. Tech genius, philanthropist. His company sponsored half the hospitals in Ghana, including Accra General, including the ward where Grayson Lovu now held power. "What happened to you?" he asked. His eyes scanned her torn clothes, her gaunt face, the baby in her arms. Amara's throat closed. Where could she even start? "Someone I trusted," she said quietly. "They took everything." Kwame's jaw tightened. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a wallet. He counted out 500 Cedis and pressed the bills into her hand. Amara's first instinct was to refuse. Charity felt like another kind of theft, taking her dignity along with the money. But Kwame shook his head. "Not charity. You gave me back my daughter. Let me give you back your fight." He pulled out a business card, simple, white. "Kwame OC, CEO, OC Tech Group." "Go somewhere dry tonight," he said. "Feed your baby, rest. Then tomorrow call this number. I want to hear your story. All of it. Why?" Amara's voice cracked. "Why does it matter?" Kwame stood. Water dripped from his suit pants. His bare feet were covered in mud. "Because 3 years ago you broke the rules to save a life. That's not the kind of woman who steals from children. Someone lied. And I have resources to find out who." He walked back to his car, picked up his shoes, got in. The sedan drove away. Amara sat in the rain, holding 500 Cedis and a business card. Zara cooed, reaching for the colorful bills. "Your mama used to save lives," Amara whispered. Maybe someone finally remembered. That night Amara rented a room. A real room. With a bed. A door that locked. A roof that didn't leak. She fed Zara warm milk. She showered for the first time in weeks. The water ran brown with dirt and exhaustion. She lay in the bed with Zara beside her and stared at the ceiling. She touched the blue scarf tied at her waist. She didn't pray often anymore. God had felt absent for too long, but tonight she whispered, "Thank you. For memory, for mercy, for someone who didn't forget." She fell asleep holding Kwame's business card. Somewhere in the city, a man sat in his office and made a phone call. "I need your best investigator," he said. "Someone destroyed an innocent woman. I want to know who. And I want proof. The kind of proof that holds up in court. The kind that destroys lies. The kind that turns empires into rubble." The call came 3 days later. Amara stood outside a glass tower in Accra's business district. Airport City. The buildings here didn't have cracks in the walls or rust on the gates. Everything gleamed. Clean. Expensive. The kind of place that reminded her she longer belonged to the world of professional people. She wore the cleanest clothes she owned, a faded dress donated by a church group months ago. She'd washed it twice. Zara was strapped to her chest in a carrier someone had left at the soup kitchen. The security guard looked at her like she was lost. "I have an appointment," she said quietly. "Kwame Osi." He checked his tablet. His eyebrows lifted. He waved her through without another word. The elevator was glass. She could see the city shrinking below her as she rose. 14th floor. The air smelled like leather and expensive coffee. The doors opened to a reception area with marble floors and walls covered in framed awards. OSEI Tech Group, in brushed steel letters. A woman in a crisp suit smiled at her. "Ms. Ndlovu? Mr. Ose is expecting you. Please follow me." Amara's hands trembled. She touched the blue scarf at her waist for courage. Kwame's office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Accra. He stood when she entered, gestured to a leather couch, not the chair across from his desk, level, equal. "Please sit. Can I get you anything?" "Water? Tea? Food?" "Water," Amara whispered. Her throat was dry. He poured her a glass from a crystal pitcher. She drank it in 3 gulps. He refilled it without asking. "Thank you for coming," Kwame said. He sat across from her, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "I know this isn't easy." Amara looked at him. "You said you wanted to hear my story." "I do, all of it. Start wherever you need to start." So she told him the accusation, the security footage, the money, Grace standing in that yellow blazer, crying false tears, every gesture rehearsed, the badge ripped from her neck. David's death, the streets, the rain, Zara's birth in a clinic where no one would meet her eyes. Kwame listened without interrupting. His jaw tightened with each detail. His hands curled into fists, but he didn't speak until she finished. "Grace and Lovu," he said slowly. "Your sister-in-law, the regional health director. Yes, the woman who hosts Faith and Healing Hour. Yellow dress every Sunday, Bible in hand. Yes?" Amara's voice was flat. "Always yellow." "It's her brand now." Kwame stood. Walked to the window. Stared at the city below. "I've met her," he said. His voice was cold. "Twice, healthcare summit. Charity gala. She talked about integrity. About how hard it is to root out corruption." He turned back to Amara. "She was very convincing." "She always is," Kwame pulled a folder from his desk, thick, heavy. He placed it on the table between them with a sound like a judge's gavel. 3 days ago, I hired the best private investigator in West Africa, former Interpol, financial crimes specialist. I told her to dig into the theft at Accra General Hospital. Find the truth, whoever it hurt." He opened the folder. Paper smelled like ink and secrets. She found more than I expected. He laid out the first document. A bank statement. Grace and Lovu's personal account. Transactions highlighted in yellow marker. Cruel irony. 85,000 Cedis went missing from the Children's Emergency Fund, Kwame said. "That's what they accused you of stealing." "Yes, but 85,000 wasn't the full amount." He laid another page beside it. Dates, numbers, a pattern emerging. Over 14 months, someone took 127,000 Cedis. Not all at once. Small amounts. 2,000 here, 5,000 there. His finger traced the timeline, enough to avoid triggering automatic audits. Amara's breath caught. 127,000. The hospital only noticed during annual reconciliation. By then, too much was missing to hide. He looked at her. Someone needed a scapegoat fast. He pulled out a vendor invoice, placed it in front of her. "Look at this. Medical supplies, Kofi Enterprises, $12,000. "Looks legitimate," she said. "Kofi Enterprises doesn't exist." Another invoice. Another company name, another 15 fake vendors. All registered to P.O. boxes in Tama. Every deposit goes to the same account. He tapped Grace's bank statement. Amara's hands started shaking. The papers blurred, but the security footage, she whispered. "It showed me. In the pharmacy." 2:13 a.m. Kwame's expression darkened. He pulled out a flash drive. "May I?" She nodded. He turned his laptop toward her. Plugged in the drive, opened a video file, split-screen footage. Both labeled Accra General Hospital, Pharmacy Storage, Thursday. Left screen, Amara in scrubs unlocking the pharmacy cabinet. Timestamp 2:13:47 a.m. Right screen, same room. Same angle, but Grace at the cabinet. Yellow blazer unmistakable. Same timestamp 2:13:47 a.m. Amara's vision tunneled. 2 videos, 1 real, 1 edited. Kwame zoomed in. "See the edge here? The yellow bleeds through. The software couldn't fully replace the color. Whoever did this was good, but not perfect. Yaw Mensah, IT technician, 24 years old, drowning in student debt." Kwame pulled out bank transfers. 2 weeks before your accusation, Grace sent him 15,000 Cedis. 3 days after your firing, another 10,000. Amara's stomach turned. 25,000 to destroy my life, to save hers. The air conditioning hummed. Traffic sounds filtered through the windows. Amara stared at the split screens, her face replaced by digital lies. "There's more," Kwame said. His voice was gentler now. "This part is worse." He pulled out a business license. Grace Memorial Clinic. Proprietor, Grace and Lovu. She used the stolen money to open her own clinic. Private practice, competing with Accra General. She targeted wealthy patients. Cut every corner she could. Why? Profit margins. He laid out hiring records. Unqualified nurses. Doctors who'd lost their licenses elsewhere. Cheapest stuff she could find. Amara felt cold. And the patients? Kwame didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out a thin folder. This one felt heavier than all the others combined. Ghana's health ministry tracks mortality statistics for all licensed facilities, public and private. Health Service Act requires it. I filed a right to information request under the RTI Act of 2019. He opened the folder. A single chart. 2 columns. Accra General Hospital. Pediatric ward. 12% infant mortality rate. Grace Memorial Clinic. Pediatric unit. 92% infant mortality rate. The numbers blurred. Amara's ears rang. The room tilted. 11 babies in 6 months. Kwame's voice cracked. All under 1 year old. All preventable, infections, medication errors, neglect. Amara couldn't breathe. Her hands went numb. She thought of every baby she'd ever saved. Every mother she'd comforted. Every tiny heartbeat she'd fought to protect. 11 families, 11 mothers, who would never hold their children again, because Grace needed profit margins. The families, Amara whispered. Do they know? No. Ministry buries the statistics in annual reports. No one reads them. Kwame's jaw was granite. Grace's clinic is still operating, still accepting patients. The nausea hit hard. Amara leaned forward, head between her knees. Zara stirred against her chest but didn't wake. How? Amara's voice was raw. How does someone do that? Because she has friends, donors, politicians who owe her favors. Kwame pulled out a glossy brochure. His hands were shaking now. OC Tech Group Corporate Social Responsibility Initiative. Partner Grace Memorial Clinic. We were going to sponsor a new pediatric wing. $500,000. I was going to stand on stage beside her next month and smile for cameras. He threw the brochure across the room. It hit the window and fell. I almost funded 11 more graves. Silence filled the space. Outside, Accra lived and breathed. Inside, 2 people sat with proof of calculated murder dressed as medicine. Amara looked up. Her eyes were dry. Tears felt too small for this. What happens now? Kwame looked at her. That depends on you. On me? You're the victim. Your name, your life, your husband. He gestured to the evidence. This is your story. You can take it to the police. File charges. Trust the system. Amara's laugh was bitter. The system ignored me for 9 months. Froze my accounts. Called me a thief. Why would it listen now? Because now you have proof. And me. And if Grace's friends protect her. If donations buy silence. Kwame smiled. It wasn't kind. It was sharp, dangerous. Then we go public. Court of opinion, media. I can put this evidence in front of 10 million people by tomorrow morning. She'll fight back. She will. Lawyers. Spin. She'll call it revenge. Doctored evidence. She'll use everything. Then why risk it? Kwame leaned forward. Because 3 years ago, a nurse broke hospital policy to save my daughter. She chose a child's life over her career. Now I'm asking, do we play by rules that failed you? Or break them to save the next 11 babies? Amara looked down at Zara, sleeping, breathing. Alive because Amara refused to surrender. She thought of 11 mothers. 11 empty cribs. 11 funerals Grace never attended. How many babies died? She asked. 11 documented. Probably more. Then this isn't about me. Amara's voice was steel. It's about them. Kwame nodded. What do you want? Amara touched the blue scarf at her waist. Remembered who she was. Who she'd always been underneath the rags. Justice. Not revenge, justice. She looked up. I want Grace to face what she did. Publicly. I want those families to know. I want her clinic shut down before another baby dies. That's not a small ask, I know. It would be brutal. She'll destroy you worse than before. She already destroyed me. Amara's grip tightened on Zara. There's nothing left to take. But I'm still breathing. I can still fight, Kwame extended his hand. Then let's fight. Amara shook it. Her grip was weak. Her resolve was iron. There's one more thing. Kwame pulled out an invitation. Heavy cardstock. Gold lettering. Hope for Africa Gala. Accra International Conference Center. Honoring leaders in healthcare. Grace is the keynote speaker. 800 guests. Politicians, donors, media. She's receiving a humanitarian award. He paused. Integrity in healthcare leadership. Amara's breath caught. When? 5 days. And I want her to receive that award on stage. 800 witnesses. Then I want the screens behind her to show everything. The embezzlement. The fake footage. The babies. Kwame's voice was quiet, lethal. All of it. 60-foot screen, while she's holding her trophy. That's public execution, undeniable. She'll have nowhere to hide. No time to spin. Just raw truth in front of everyone who praised her. Amara imagined it. Grace in yellow under spotlights. The applause. Then the screens changing. The gasps. The silence, the reckoning. Will it work? If you're there. If you stand up. If you face her, I'll be there. No hesitation. Tell me what to do. First, rest, eat, recover, hotel for you and Zara safe. Private? Then we prepare lawyers, doctors, witnesses, build a case they can't dismiss. And then we walk into that gala. You in the front row, me on stage. And we show Ghana who Grace Ndlovu really is. Amara stood. Zara stirred but didn't wake. She extended her hand to Kwame. Thank you. For remembering. For believing. For this. He shook his head. You saved my daughter when no one else would. This isn't kindness. It's debt. And I always pay. As Amara left, she passed a mirror in the hallway. She stopped, stared at her reflection, hollow cheeks, tired eyes, torn dress. Blue scarf faded but still tied at her waist. She looked broken, but in the glass she also saw another woman, the one who worked double shifts. Who saved lives? Who chose mercy when rules said no? That woman was still there, underneath everything Grace had tried to bury. And in 5 days 800 people would see her rise. Grace Ndlovu had taken her career, her husband, her dignity, her name, but she hadn't taken the part of Amara that knew how to stand in the fire, the part that refused to let children die, the part that remembered what nurses are for. Amara touched the glass. Her reflection touched back. 5 days, she whispered. 5 days until the woman in yellow learned what happens when you destroy someone who has nothing left to lose, but everything. Left to fight for the Accra International. Conference Center glowed like a jewel box. Floodlights painted the building gold against the night sky. Black sedans and luxury SUVs lined the circular drive. Men in tuxedos. Women in evening gowns. The air smelled like expensive perfume and imported champagne. Inside the grand ballroom, 800 seats faced a stage draped in white silk and fairy lights. Hope for Africa Gala in 10-foot letters across the back wall. Cameras on tripods, photographers adjusting lenses. Ghana's elite gathering to celebrate themselves. Amara sat in the front row. She wore a simple blue dress, bought 3 days ago with Kwame's help. Nothing fancy, but clean, pressed, dignified. Her hair was braided, her face scrubbed. Zara slept in a carrier against her chest, tiny fists curled under her chin. Dr. Mensah sat beside her. He'd accepted Kwame's invitation without hesitation. I want to see justice, he'd said. I'm old enough to remember when it still mattered. Kwame sat 3 seats down, flanked by lawyers and his head of security. He caught Amara's eye. Nodded once ready, the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. Grace Ndlovu entered from stage left. The applause was immediate, thunderous. 800 people on their feet. She wore a custom yellow gown, silk and gold thread, fitted to perfection. The fabric caught every light like liquid sunshine. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo. Diamond earrings glittered. Her smile was radiant. She looked like a queen. She looked like someone who saved lives instead of ending them. Grace reached the podium, held up her hands for silence. The crowd settled. Phones raised to record, cameras focused. Good evening, Grace said. Her voice was warm, practiced, perfect. What an honor to stand before you tonight. More applause. She waited, smiled wider. When I entered healthcare leadership 15 years ago, I made a promise to myself. I would never compromise, never look away from wrongdoing, never let personal relationships cloud my judgment. Amara's hands clenched. Zara stirred but didn't wake. That promise cost me, Grace continued. Her voice cracked with practiced emotion. 2 years ago, I discovered corruption at Accra General Hospital. Money stolen from children. The thief was someone I loved, someone I trusted. My own sister-in-law. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Grace dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Yellow silk coordinated with her gown. Exposing her destroyed my family. But integrity demands sacrifice. I chose justice over comfort, truth over loyalty. Ghana's children over my own peace, the crowd erupted. Standing ovation. Cameras flashed. Grace bowed her head humbly, but Amara saw the small smile playing at her lips. A tall man in a tuxedo approached the stage, carrying a crystal trophy on a velvet pillow. Even from the front row, Amara could read the engraving, "Integrity in Healthcare Leadership." The MC's voice boomed through speakers. "Here it is my profound honor to present this year's award to Regional Health Director Grace Ndlovu." Grace accepted the trophy, held it high. The crystal caught the spotlight, sending rainbow prisms across the ceiling. The crowd roared. She returned to the microphone. "This award belongs to every healthcare worker who chooses truth when lies are easier. Who stands firm when—" The screens behind her flickered. Grace paused mid-sentence, turned slightly. The audience murmured. The screens had been showing her clinic's promotional video. Smiling children, pristine facilities. Grace in her white coat surrounded by grateful families. Now they showed something else, split-screen footage. Security camera timestamp. 2:13:47 a.m. left side. Grace in her yellow blazer at the pharmacy cabinet. Unlocking it, taking files. Her face clearly visible. Right side, the same footage, but with Amara's face digitally imposed over Grace's. Same timestamp. Same angle. Same movement. The ballroom went silent. Grace's smile froze. "That's—" Her voice lost its warmth. "Someone turned that off. Now no one moved." The screens held steady. A journalist in the third row started typing on his phone. Flash, flash, flash. Camera shutters clicked like insects. Grace's hand tightened on the trophy. "My listeners know who I am. My show has 50,000 loyal—" The screen switched bank statements. Grace Ndlovu's personal account. Deposits highlighted in yellow. C 12,000 from Kofi Enterprises. Say 5,000 from Mensa Medical Supply. SAD 8,000 from Abina Health Services. SAD 15,000 from Kwame Distributors over and over. 14 months of deposits. Total at bottom C $127,000. A minister in the fifth row stood up. Grabbed his coat. Walked toward the exit. Others followed. "This is a lie." Grace's voice cracked. She stepped away from the podium. "Someone is framing me. They've doctored—" The screen switched again. 15 vendor invoices, company names, registration numbers, all fake. Then bank records showing all deposits into one account. Grace Ndlovu, a donor in the second row, ripped a check in half. The sound was loud in the silence. Grace's breath came faster. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her yellow gown suddenly looked too tight. Too bright. Too much. "I built my clinic with legitimate funds. My own savings. I worked for—" The screen switched. Business license. Grace Memorial Clinic. Proprietor Grace Ndlovu. Date registered. 3 months after the theft began. Purchase records. C $127,000 down payment. Murmurs became voices. Voices became shouts. She used stolen money. Built a business on theft. Grace stumbled backward. Her heel caught on a cable. She grabbed the podium to steady herself. The microphone shrieked with feedback. "I deserve that clinic." The words burst out before she could stop them. "I worked 15 years in that hospital. Underpaid. Overlooked. I took what I earned." The ballroom froze. She'd said it. Admitted it. On camera. In front of 800 witnesses. Grace's eyes widened. She realized what she'd done. "No, I didn't mean—" The screen switched again. Ministry of Health Mortality Statistics. Accra General Hospital. Pediatric Ward. 12% infant mortality. Grace. Memorial Clinic. Pediatric Unit 92%. Infant mortality. The silence was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. Then the screens showed faces, 11 babies, 11 names, 11 birth dates, 11 death dates, all within 6 months. All at Grace Memorial Clinic. Kwame Jr. Mensa. Born March 15, died March 22nd. Infection preventable Ama Asante. Born May 3rd, died May 11th. Medication error. Preventable. Kofi Boateng. Born June 1st, died June 4th. Neglect preventable 1 by 1. 11 lives. 11 failures. A woman in the fifth row stood up. Her scream was primal. "That's my grandson." Kwame Jr., you told me it was God's will. You held my hand and prayed with me. Another woman stood, voice shaking. My daughter's baby, Amma. You said there was nothing you could do. A man rose. Kofi was my nephew. You charged us 50,000 Cedis for specialized care. He died in 3 days, more standing. More voices. Mothers, grandmothers, fathers, aunts. The families of the 11 rising from seats, scattered across the ballroom. You killed them. You profited from death. How much did my baby's life cost you? Grace backed away from the podium. Her face was white. Her hands shook. The yellow gown that had glowed under spotlights now looked like a warning. Signed, toxic, dangerous, false. I didn't know the staff I hired. Qualified. Those deaths were complications. The screen switched one final time. Hiring records. Nurses without licenses. Doctors barred from practice. Staff hired at minimum wage to maximize profit margins. Grace Memorial Clinic profit margin, 340%. Accra General Hospital profit margin, non-profit. Kwame stood, walked to the stage. His footsteps echoed in the silent ballroom. He took the microphone from the stand, not from Grace's hands. She was clutching the crystal trophy like a shield. My name is Kwame Ose, he said. His voice was calm, controlled, more frightening than rage. 3 years ago, a nurse at Accra General Hospital broke protocol to save my daughter's life. The on-call doctor was drunk. My daughter was dying. That nurse administered epinephrine without permission, without backup, because she chose a child's life over hospital rules. He pointed to the front row. Her name is Amara Ndlovu. Every eye turned to Amara. Camera shutters clicked. Video lights blazed. 2 years ago, Kwame continued, Grace Ndlovu accused Amara of stealing 85,000 Cedis, but the real thief took 127,000. Grace bribed an IT technician to doctor security footage. She framed an innocent woman to cover her crimes. Grace shook her head frantically. He's lying. He's in love with her. This is revenge. Doctored evidence. She'll use everything. Amara's husband died 3 weeks after the accusation. Stress, exhaustion, defending a wife everyone called a thief. Amara gave birth to her daughter in a public clinic. No money, no family, no support. To Kwame's voice rose. She spent 9 months homeless, begging in the rain with her infant daughter. Because you needed a scapegoat. He held up a folder, thick, official. I have bank records verified by forensic accountants, video evidence authenticated by digital experts, ministry statistics from the Ghana Health Service, testimony from Dr. Kofi Mensah, retired cardiologist, witness statements from families, all documented, all true. All ready for the Criminal Investigation Department. Grace's legs buckled. She grabbed the podium edge. The crystal trophy slipped from her hands. It fell in slow motion. Hit the stage floor, shattered. Integrity and healthcare leadership broke into a dozen pieces. Crystal fragments scattered across the stage like diamonds, or glass, or lies finally exposed. Grace stared at the broken pieces. Her reflection fractured in the shards. Amara stood. She moved slowly, deliberately. The ballroom watched in silence. Zara woke and cooed softly. Amara walked up the center aisle. 800 people tracking her movement. She climbed the stage stairs. Each step deliberate, final. She stood beside Kwame, faced the crowd. Camera flashes turned the moment into lightning. She reached into her dress pocket and pulled out her blue hospital badge. The one Grace had confiscated 18 months ago. The one Kwame's investigators had recovered from evidence. The one forensic analysis proved Grace herself had handled. Head nurse, Ward 4, Amara Ndlovu. She held it up. The stage lights made it glow like blue fire. My name is Amara Ndlovu, she said. Her voice was quiet, but every person heard it. For 11 years I saved children's lives. I worked double shifts. I held babies when their mothers couldn't. I broke rules when rules meant death. She looked at Grace. You took my name, my career, my husband. You tried to erase me from the world. Then she turned back to the crowd. But you can steal a badge. You can't steal a calling. The line landed. Reporters wrote it down. Cameras zoomed in. 11 babies died, Amara continued. 11 families trusted Grace Ndlovu. She failed them. She killed them. And she stood in front of cameras and blamed God. 4 police officers approached the stage. The lead officer's voice was formal, clear. Grace Ndlovu, You are under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, criminal negligence resulting in death, and obstruction of justice under the Criminal Offences Act. Grace's eyes darted, looking for escape, looking for allies. A politician she'd had lunch with last week turned away. A donor she'd flattered at dinner avoided her gaze. The television host who'd interviewed her covered her face with her program. No one would meet her eyes. No one moved to help. She tried to run. Her yellow gown caught on the microphone stand, the same stand she'd knocked askew earlier. The fabric held. She yanked. It tore completely from waist to hem. She fell hard onto broken crystal, onto shattered integrity. Her yellow gown ripped. Her hair came loose from its updo. Diamond earrings scattered. One rolled off the stage and disappeared. The police lifted her to her feet, handcuffed her wrists in front of her body. The chrome gleamed against yellow silk. As they led her off stage, Grace looked back once, saw Amara holding Zara, saw the blue badge gleaming, saw Dr. Mensah climbing the steps to stand beside her, saw the families of the 11 babies forming a line across the stage. "I'm sorry," Grace whispered. Not to Amara, not to the families, to herself. "I'm sorry I got caught." The words were caught on a hot mic, broadcast through the speakers, recorded by 50 cameras, her final confession. Her truest words. The police led her away. Her yellow gown dragged across the floor, picking up dirt and broken glass. The woman who'd glowed like sunshine now looked like wreckage. The ballroom erupted. Not applause. Something raw. Anger, relief, vindication, justice. An elderly woman stood, raised her fist. "The ancestors see everything." Others echoed, "Truth wins. Justice." Awura de Midasi. The families of the 11 babies stood across the stage. Amara in the center, holding Zara and her badge. Dr. Mensah on her right. Kwame on her left. Behind them, the 60-foot screens glowing with evidence. A photographer from the Ghana Times captured it. The image that would become front page. The image that would change everything. Amara, blue dress, blue badge, blue scarf visible at her waist. Zara asleep against her chest. Surrounded by the families Grace destroyed. The stage floor covered in broken crystal and yellow fabric. And behind them, projected like judgment, 92% infant mortality. 11 names, 11 lives, 11 families, one lie. The gala ended. People filed out slowly, shaken, some crying, some furious, all changed. Kwame touched Amara's shoulder. "You okay?" She looked at him. Tears came, not sad, not happy. Something between relief, exhaustion, victory, grief. "I'm okay," she whispered. "For the first time in 18 months, I'm okay." Outside, police cars waited. Grace was placed in the back seat of one. She stared out the window as they drove away. No more yellow gown. Just a gray blanket over torn silk. No more spotlight. Just darkness. And in the ballroom, Amara and Lovu stood holding her daughter and her badge, the woman they tried to erase, still standing, still breathing, still fighting, still here. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Grace and Lovu's lawyers argued circumstantial evidence, claimed videos were doctored, suggested conspiracy, but forensic accountants traced every CD. Digital experts authenticated every frame. On day 12, a mother took the stand. She was small, soft-spoken. She held a photograph. "This is Kwame Jr.," she whispered. 7 days old when he died at Grace Memorial Clinic. She told me there was nothing she could do. I believed her. I thanked her. Her voice broke. I thanked the woman who killed my grandson for her unqualified care. The courtroom was silent. Grace stared at her hands. The jury watched. 11 families testified. Dr. Mensah took the stand. Kwame presented documentation that filled 40 binders. The jury deliberated 4 hours. Guilty. All counts. The judge's voice was steady. 7 years at Nsawam Medium Security Prison. All assets seized and liquidated. Restitution to victims' families. Handwritten apology letters to each family. And 2 years community service in the prison laundry. A pause. Then, "You will wash hospital scrubs. Blue ones." Grace stood motionless as guards led her away. No yellow, just gray prison uniform. No spotlight. Just fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired. Amara sat in the gallery holding Zara. She felt no joy. No triumph. Just a quiet settling like dust after a storm. Outside the courthouse, journalists surrounded her. Microphones, cameras, questions shouted over each other. Ms. Ndlovu, do you forgive Grace? Amara looked at the reporter. Thought carefully. I forgive her because unforgiveness would poison my daughter's milk. But forgiveness doesn't mean I forget. It doesn't mean she escapes consequences. She can repent in prison. I will raise my daughter in peace. Will you visit her? No. Firm, kind, final. Forgiveness doesn't require me to re-enter the fire that burned me. I've set her free in my heart. But I won't give her access to my life. The clip went viral. 50 million views in 3 days. A market woman in Kumasi quoted it to her daughters. A university student made it her thesis topic. A pastor in Tamale wove it into his Sunday sermon. Forgiveness with boundaries, mercy without reconciliation. Kwame established the Amara Ndlovu Pediatric Fund, 2 million Cedis initial endowment. Corporate donations poured in, 5 million within 6 months. The fund provided free emergency care, nursing scholarships, and legal aid for falsely accused healthcare workers. One permanent memorial was erected, a wall at Accra General Hospital with 11 names engraved in stone. 11 babies. 11 lives that demanded change. Grace Memorial Clinic was shuttered, renovated, reopened as a community health center with qualified staff and independent auditors. The new sign read, Justice Memorial Clinic in memory of those we failed. Accra General Hospital implemented biometric security, 3 signature approval for all fund transfers, quarterly vendor verification. The reform spread to 12 hospitals within a year. 9 months after the verdict, Amara returned to work, not at Accra General. Too many ghosts. She accepted a position as Director of Pediatric Ethics at Ridge Hospital. Better pay, better hours. A new blue badge, Director Ndlovu. She rented a small apartment in Osu, 2 bedrooms. A door that locked from the inside. Zara had her own room, painted yellow and blue. Amara woke every morning to make tea and watch sunrise through windows that didn't leak. Small victories. But they mattered. Her first day at Ridge, a junior nurse asked nervously, Is it true? The story? Amara smiled. Which part? All of it. The streets. The Gala, yes, all true. How did you survive? Amara looked out the window. Zara was in daycare, playing with blocks, laughing. I remembered who I was underneath what they called me. Thief, beggar. Those were circumstances, not identity. I was still a nurse, still a mother, still someone who saves lives. They could take my badge. They couldn't take my calling. The junior nurse wrote it down, posted it above her locker. That afternoon, Amara planted a garden outside the pediatrics ward. Yellow marigolds beside blue hydrangeas. Patients' families helped. Someone donated a bench. She told a grandmother watching, Even weeds teach us. Beauty and poison can wear the same color. You choose which you cultivate. The woman understood. The years passed in small victories. Grace sent letters from prison. One every Christmas. The first year, excuses. The second year, self-pity. The third year, something that might have been remorse. Amara read them. Never responded. Grace's healing was Grace's work. Dr. Mensah died peacefully at 72. Amara held his hand in his final hour. You remembered my name, she whispered. That's what good people do, he smiled. You made it easy, Sister Amara. You never stopped being worth remembering. Kwame's daughter, Ama, now 13, volunteered at the Pediatric Fund. I want to be a nurse like Auntie Amara, she told everyone. And Zara, now 4, played nurse with her dolls, wrapped their arms in bandages. Whispered, You're going to be okay. I'm here. Amara watched her daughter and saw the future. The calling passed down. The legacy redeemed. One evening, Zara asked, Mama, why do you still wear that old scarf? Amara touched the faded blue fabric at her waist. Still there, always there. It reminds me that I survived, she said. And that survival isn't the same as giving up, Zara nodded. Didn't fully understand yet. Would someday. That night, after Zara slept, Amara walked through the healing garden, blue and yellow flowers swaying in the breeze. Both beautiful, both necessary, both teaching. She touched a marigold petal, thought of Grace in prison laundry, thought of the 11 babies on the memorial wall, thought of her own daughter sleeping safely. The rain had washed away the lies. The truth had survived. And she, Amara Ndlovu, nurse mother survivor, was still standing, not because she was stronger than others, but because she refused to let someone else's Evil define her story. 5. Years after the gala, Amara stood at the memorial wall in Accra General Hospital. 11 names carved in stone. Fresh flowers placed by families who still visited. Zara stood beside her, 7 years old now, wearing a toy stethoscope around her neck. She touched the name Kwame Jr. Mensah with small fingers. "Mama, you help babies now so this doesn't happen again?" "Yes, my love. When I grow up, I'll help babies too." Amara's throat tightened, the calling passing from mother to daughter. Not forced, not inherited, chosen. Behind them, the hospital hummed with life. Nurses in blue scrubs, biometric scanners at restricted doors, 3 signatures for every fund transfer. Reforms that started here had spread across Ghana. Grace had been released from prison 6 months ago. She worked at a community health outreach now. No leadership. No yellow dresses. No spotlight. Her final letter before release said, "I see their faces every night." All 11. I destroyed lives to build an empire of one. Amara never responded. Some roads don't need to cross again. That evening, Amara and Zara walked home through Osu. They passed the intersection where a billionaire once knelt in the rain. Amara paused, remembered the water, the torn yellow tarp. The moment hope returned, they passed the overpass where they'd slept. Amara remembered counting breaths to stay alive. 1, 2, 3. They passed the soup kitchen, remembered Dr. Mensah whispering, "I never believed it." Zara skipped ahead, safe, fed, loved, not knowing yet how close they'd come to disappearing. Amara touched the blue scarf at her waist. Still there, still faded. Still refusing to disappear, she looked up. The Accra sky was clearing after rain. A blue butterfly crossed her path. A yellow bird sang nearby. Both beautiful, both necessary, both free. She thought of the 11 babies, the families, the nurses she now trained, the students she taught every Thursday. Your calling lives inside you. No one can take it unless you give it away. And she thought of every woman standing in the rain right now, holding a baby, holding a truth no one believes, holding on to the last thread of who they are. This story, these African stories we carry, aren't just touching stories of survival. They're real-life stories that teach us. Your name might be stolen, but your worth can't be. These are the life stories that remind us we are more than what others call us. What would you do if someone you trusted destroyed your life? Have you witnessed injustice that seemed unstoppable? Share your story in the comments. Someone needs to hear they're not alone. Hit subscribe for more stories where truth defeats lies, where the humble rise, and where forgiveness heals without erasing justice. Next time, a market woman is accused of witchcraft when her competitor's daughter falls ill. But at the harvest festival, the ancestors themselves expose the accuser's secret. You won't want miss it. Amara Ndlovu survived. Not because she was stronger, but because she refused to let someone else's evil define her story. You can too.